Hey, me again. This is just kind of a slight deviation here. At the time I'm filming this, I've not yet done the the reviews for Beyond the Black Rainbow and Sinjanor. I'm recording this with the assumption that this will come out after those. So if life goes the way I intend it to, and boy, there's a threat for you. Um, I am, I am fully expecting that that will be the lineup of the little movie reviews, and if it isn't, then life threw one of its funny tricks at me. Anyway, that being regardless, I wanted to bang out this little quickie here because last night Mondo Heather Drain and I went and we sat down and watched a documentary. It's going to be one of those rare reviews of a documentary um, called Scott Walker 30th Century Man. And whoo doggies, this was a good one. In fact, it hit us so strong that on one side of sleep to another, we were still talking about it. So this is a film this was filmed in 2006. It came out officially, phone blowing up, in 2008. And it was directed by Stephen Kijak, but and was also bankrolled by David Bowie, apparently. And Bowie appears in the film, and you get to hear him wax kind of rhapsodic, kind of tell a funny story about his relationship with Scott Walker as a musician, as a just as a fan or purveyor of music, and basically as a human being, and in as much as he knew the man. And there's two showbiz enigmas for you right there. Scott Walker, if you don't know, is basically, he was introduced to me, prefacing the whole thing, he was introduced to me as, because at a point, I think probably just before he passed away and just after he passed away, I was hearing all this hype about the guy and what a brilliant, groundbreaking musician he was, and so on. And so after he died, I said to Heather, okay, I keep hearing about Scott Walker. Who is he? I am not familiar with this artist. And she said, "Oh, he was with the Walker Brothers. The sun ain't gonna shine anymore," which, great song, great pop song. But it's kind of like, okay, but I guess maybe he later on became a singer songwriter, and I wasn't sure. Later on, after the hype just built and built and built about this guy, I started looking into his music, and holy crap, man, this radical musician who went from basically being a young pop star over in Britain, and being hyped as the next Beatles, as part of the Walker Brothers and whatnot, to an interesting solo career, half of which was sadly built on compromise, but he was the guy. He probably introduced a lot of English-speaking audiences to Jacques Brel, and if you thought that credit belonged to Bowie, well, partially it does, but Walker probably got the ball rolling and may have may have been part of an influence to Bowie there. Um, just and he gave very truthful, in as much as people like famously Terry Jacks with Seasons in the Sun kind of whitewash a lot of Jacques Brel stuff. Ooh man, I just all I'm gonna say is you need to hear his interpretations, and and of course, and Bowie followed, and so did Sensational Alex Harvey Band, and with Next, and well, it's all some great stuff. But following the guy with these increasingly daring moves to the point where he's just appearing less and less in public and producing albums like years apart. The phone's still blowing up. I got a million things to do. Man, it's a shocker, particularly when you come to later albums like Tilt and Bish Bosh and 2006's Drift, which the movie picks up while they're in the middle of recording. You get to hear some of the radical techniques that he's using, and to where he's kind of creating these big wooden blocks to move trash cans around on to try to create some weird percussion instruments, and conducting orchestras in such a way to where they're trying to capture the noise in his head. Just, I mean, say Maverick, I mean, isn't even touching it. And the Drift, as I'm mentioning it, is probably, and give it, this is a former teen idol, but what we would refer to now as boy band guy, back in the 60s. This guy, by the time the Drift comes along, is producing probably some of the most terrifying music I've ever heard. Terrifying. And so the movie begins with kind of a roll of hype and a little narration underneath that had both Heather and I kind of dreading what was to come. But because basically what it goes into is that when he turned his back on pop stardom, Walker became a quote unquote recluse, and he became a famous recluse living in England and elsewhere. And this guy, and follows what kind of mysteries were we going to find? This guy they almost paint him to be like a Greta Garbo type or something. And when you finally meet Scott Walker and you finally start listening to hearing him interviewed and talking about the music and watching the recording process, it's like, that is just so much bullshit. This guy is an incredible musician, an innovator, and just this very intuitive musical thinker and musical genius, I go as far as to say. And having certain leanings in classical music and everything. He just wildly unconventional, and post Walker Brothers is not really working toward hit records at all, and is going over his long work process, the years spent developing ideas for a sound or a record that will eventually end up done. And when it's done, I mean, he'll basically sit there and get a good listen to it, just in big speakers as loud as he can, and then he's done with it. I mean, he won't even have anything to do with it anymore. And after all this hype about, the Garbo like persona and whatever, this guy had no persona whatsoever, and it's incredible to hear. I mean, he is the most refreshingly, probably, man who operates without any kind of ego or anything like that. He was just this consummate, just a regular guy. I mean, he made music the same way the guy down the street is a bricklayer, and it's just like, yeah, this is it. It means a lot to me. That's my job, and I'm fortunate to do it. And and he did it well, I gotta say, and just astonishing that we had this brilliant man who created this crazy body of work. Not a big body of work, not a prolific body of work, but a substantive body of work, and just how cool we felt watching just what an ordinary, unassuming guy he was, and how he basically, I don't know, any of the nonsense going on with the British music scene, or the music scene writ large, back in the '60s, any of the hype and the groupies and all this other stuff, he really had no part of, and he really never seemed to embrace that level of stardom or anything like that. He just was his own animal, very much his own animal, and yeah, boy, we are gonna miss him even more. Just realizing the just the kind of person he was, and the kind of genius and the kind of thinker he was, that he put all these ideas together, and to the point where you have musicians recording separately and not being allowed anywhere near the melody. Things like these orchestras who were just doing these big dive bombing drones, uh, having a percussionist just slam his fists on just sides of raw meat, and this all ends up somehow in the mix for a record. And I was just like, wow, just the depth, and at the same time, I don't know, the decency. I don't know, what an inspiring individual. Anyway, so gotta say, that kind of stayed with me. You take care of you and yours out there, and don't take no wooden nickels, folks.